While most people work hard and make calculated investments, there's a special breed of accidental millionaires who prove that sometimes the best financial strategy is having no strategy at all. These people stumbled into wealth through pure luck, stunning incompetence, and circumstances so ridiculous they'll make you question everything about success. 1. A woman from Ohio became a millionaire because she couldn't spell Amazon correctly and was too stubborn to admit her mistake. While trying to buy books online in 1997, she kept typing Amazon.com and getting increasingly frustrated when the website wouldn't load. Instead of realizing her obvious spelling error, she convinced herself that Amazon's website was broken and decided to create her own online bookstore. She bought the domain name Amazon.com for $12, spent an entire weekend designing a basic website, then completely forgot about the project when she got distracted by other things. For over 2 decades, she accidentally collected revenue from thousands of Amazon shoppers who made the same typo she did, redirecting them to affiliate links she'd set up and forgotten about. She only discovered her accidental gold mine in 2019 when a domain broker contacted her offering $2.3 million for what had become one of the most valuable typo domains on the internet, generating passive income from her inability to spell one of the world's most famous company names correctly. 2. One man accidentally became a crypto millionaire by forgetting his password and being too embarrassed to ask for help. In 2011, he bought $50 worth of Bitcoin as a joke after his coworkers kept talking about cryptocurrency, then promptly forgot both his password and the fact that he owned any digital currency. When Bitcoin started making headlines in 2017, he spent 3 months trying to remember his password, making increasingly desperate guesses that included his childhood pet names, high school locker combinations, and every variation of password he could think of. He tried meditation, hired a hypnotist to help him access repressed memories, and even consulted a psychic who claimed to specialize in recovering forgotten passwords through spiritual channeling. After 127 failed attempts that nearly locked him out permanently, he finally remembered that his password was password 123, the exact thing security experts always warn against using. His forgotten $50 investment was worth $847,000, making his complete lack of password security accidentally the perfect long-term investment strategy that outperformed most professional fund managers. 3. A woman became a real estate mogul because she was too embarrassed to admit she'd bid on the wrong property at auction. She attended her first real estate auction intending to bid on a small cottage for $80,000, but got confused by the rapid-fire auctioneering and accidentally raised her paddle for a massive 50,000 square foot commercial warehouse she hadn't even looked at. When she realized her mistake, she was too mortified to stop the bidding process or explain what had happened, especially after other bidders started competing against her and driving up the price. She went through with purchasing the enormous industrial building, spending sleepless nights worried she'd made the biggest financial mistake of her life. The warehouse turned out to be in the perfect location for the city's upcoming tech boom, and 3 years later she sold it for $4.2 million to a startup that needed exactly that much space in exactly that location for their expanding operations. Her real estate empire grew from there, all because she was too socially anxious to admit she'd made a bidding mistake that turned into the most profitable confusion of her life. 4. One guy accidentally created a $1 million app because he was trying to make his phone stop buzzing and driving him crazy. Annoyed by constant notifications from dozens of apps, he spent an entire weekend creating what he thought was a simple personal tool to manage alerts and organize his digital life. In his frustration, he accidentally included a sophisticated feature that organized notifications by priority using a complex algorithm he'd copied from a college assignment about sorting algorithms, not really understanding how it worked but thinking it looked impressive. He uploaded it to the App Store as Buzzkill and completely forgot about it, assuming nobody else would want such a specific solution to his personal annoyance problem. 6 months later, Apple called to inform him that his accidental productivity app had been downloaded 12 million times, featured in their best of category, and generated $1.8 million in revenue from users who were desperate for exactly the notification management solution he'd created to solve his own digital overwhelm problem. 5. A woman became wealthy by buying the wrong stock with her grandmother's inheritance and never bothering to correct the mistake. She meant to invest $5,000 in Apple stock after reading a magazine article about the company's potential, but made a typo when placing the order through her broker's online system and accidentally bought shares in a tiny company called Appel Petroleum instead. She noticed the error immediately but was too embarrassed to call her broker and admit she'd misspelled one of the world's most famous companies, so she decided to just leave the investment alone and pretend it was intentional. 6 months later, Appel Petroleum announced they'd discovered a significant oil reserve and was acquired by a major oil company for 40 times its previous value, turning her mistaken $5,000 investment into $200,000. She never told her family that her brilliant contrarian investment strategy was actually just a typing error that accidentally saved her from buying Apple stock right before a temporary market dip that would have cost her money. 6. Another man accidentally became a YouTube millionaire by uploading videos he thought were private practice sessions. For 2 years, he recorded himself practicing magic tricks in his basement, thinking he was saving them locally on his computer, but actually uploading them to YouTube as unlisted videos due to a settings confusion he never bothered to investigate. His magic practice sessions were refreshingly honest disasters where tricks went wrong, cards scattered everywhere, and he muttered frustrated commentary about his failures that was more entertaining than most professional comedy. When his tech-savvy nephew discovered the videos and made them public as a prank, his awkward magic practice sessions went viral as the world's most honest magician. His authentic failure-based content resonated with millions of viewers who were tired of polished perfection, and his accidental comedy channel gained 8 million subscribers. His genuine incompetence earned him $1.4 million in ad revenue and sponsorship deals from companies who wanted to be associated with his refreshingly authentic approach to failing spectacularly in public. 7. A cafe owner got rich because she ordered 100 cases of energy drinks instead of 100 individual cans for her small coffee shop. The supplier delivered 12,000 energy drinks to a cafe that normally sold about 50 beverages per day, creating a storage crisis that filled every available space, including her apartment above the shop. Instead of admitting her ordering mistake and paying return shipping fees she couldn't afford, she decided to sell energy drinks at a massive discount just to get rid of the overwhelming inventory that was taking over her life. Her cafe became the only place in town where college students and night shift workers could buy energy drinks for less than grocery store prices, and word spread quickly through social media about the energy drink lady who was practically giving away caffeine. The energy drink company noticed her unprecedented sales numbers and offered her an exclusive regional distribution deal worth $900,000 annually, turning her ordering incompetence into a beverage empire that started with a math error and ended with regional monopoly status. 8. One customer accidentally created a $1 million business by trying to return a broken printer and making a mistake that revealed a massive system flaw. When his printer died, he bought an identical replacement model, but in his haste to get the return processed, he mistakenly sent back the new working printer instead of the broken one. The retail company processed his return without checking the serial numbers, issued a full refund, and left him with 2 working printers plus store credit for his defective unit. Realizing he discovered a significant weakness in the electronics return system, he started a printer arbitrage business, strategically buying returned electronics that were actually functional and reselling them online at market prices. His accidental discovery of return processing flaws generated $2.1 million in revenue over 3 years before the major retailers closed the loopholes. But by then, he'd built a legitimate electronics refurbishing business that continued thriving long after his original system exploit was fixed. 9. A woman became a stock market success story by being too lazy and discouraged to actively manage her losing investments. She bought shares in 5 different companies based on a magazine article, watched them all immediately lose money, and decided she was obviously terrible at investing and should never check her portfolio again to avoid further disappointment. 3 years later, her financial advisor called to congratulate her on her sophisticated buy and hold strategy and her incredible patience during market volatility. 4 of her 5 failing investments had not only recovered but doubled in value during a market rally, and the 5th company had been acquired by Google at a premium price that made early investors wealthy. Her $8,000 worth of stocks that she'd mentally written off as losses was worth $156,000. proving that her complete disengagement from active trading had been more successful than the day trading strategies employed by people who spent hours analyzing markets and making frequent transactions. 10. An employee got rich because he was too nervous about confrontation to tell his boss about a billing mistake he'd discovered. His company's software glitched and accidentally charged a major client $50,000 instead of the correct $5,000 for consulting services, creating an invoice error that made him panic about potential consequences. He noticed the error immediately but was too anxious about admitting mistakes to report it, assuming someone with more authority would eventually catch and fix the problem without involving him. The client paid the inflated invoice without questioning it, apparently assuming the higher price reflected premium service levels or additional work they'd forgotten about requesting. When his boss saw the payment, he praised the employee's innovative premium pricing strategy and promoted him to sales director with a commission-based compensation structure. The nervous employee earned $400,000 in his first year by accidentally discovering that some corporate clients would pay significantly higher prices without negotiating, leading to a career in high-end consulting that started with his fear of reporting a software glitch. 11. One woman became a domain name millionaire by registering websites for celebrities she had romantic crushes on during the early days of the internet. In 1999, when domain names cost almost nothing and most people didn't understand their future value, she spent $200 of her birthday money registering domains like BradPittFanClub.com, TomCruiseFan.com, and LeonardoDiCaprioFans.com because she thought it would be fun to own websites dedicated to actors she found attractive. She created basic fan sites with photos and trivia, then lost interest when she got busy with college and work, but continued renewing the domains each year out of habit and nostalgia. 20 years later, as social media marketing became sophisticated and celebrity branding evolved into a billion-dollar industry, marketing agencies started contacting her with increasingly generous offers for domains that were perfect for official fan communities and promotional campaigns. Her teenage crush-inspired domain collection sold for a combined $1.8 million to agencies who needed exactly those URLs for celebrity marketing campaigns, proving that adolescent infatuation could accidentally become a more profitable investment strategy than most professional portfolio management. 12. A guy accidentally created a profitable artisanal business by being consistently terrible at following soap-making recipes he found online. He tried to make homemade soap using YouTube tutorials, but made measuring mistakes that created bars with unusual textures, unexpected colors, and surprising scent combinations that were completely different from the intended results. His friends and family loved his artisanal soap accidents so much that they started requesting specific variations and offering to pay him for custom batches of his beautiful mistakes. What started as incompetent hobby crafting became a luxury bath product line when customers assumed his measuring errors were intentional artistic choices, representing sophisticated understanding of soap chemistry. His accidental soap empire generated $800,000 in annual revenue from boutique customers who paid premium prices for handcrafted artisanal soaps that were actually just the result of his inability to follow basic measurements and instructions correctly. 13. A woman got rich by accidentally hoarding vintage items she genuinely believed were worthless junk taking up space in her life. She bought storage unit contents in bulk auctions because she needed cheap furniture for her first apartment, not realizing she was accidentally collecting perfectly preserved items from the 1960s and 70s that previous owners had stored and forgotten about. Her garage gradually filled with ugly old stuff, including furniture, clothing, appliances, and decorative items that she planned to eventually throw away or donate when she had time to sort through everything properly. When she finally organized a garage sale to clear space, a vintage furniture dealer happened to drive by and offered her $180,000 for what she considered her collection of junk that was cluttering her life. Her accidental vintage curation, which had cost her only $300 in storage unit auction fees, turned into an antique dealing business that generated hundreds of thousands in revenue from items she'd originally planned to throw away as worthless garage clutter. 14. An accountant became wealthy by being too polite and socially awkward to correct a business card printing mistake that completely changed his professional identity. He ordered 500 business cards for his small tax preparation practice, but the printer mistakenly listed him as a certified public accountant and business consultant, instead of just accountant, adding services he wasn't qualified to provide and had never offered to clients. Too embarrassed about the cost of reprinting and too socially anxious to explain the error, he started handing out the incorrect cards and hoped nobody would notice or ask about the consulting services. Clients began specifically requesting his business consulting expertise, and rather than admit his qualifications were limited to tax preparation, he started providing advice based on common sense and business books he frantically read between client meetings. His accidental consulting practice grew into a firm generating $1.2 million annually in revenue, from strategic advice he learned while desperately trying to sound competent in areas he'd never studied, proving that confidence and willingness to learn could be more valuable than formal credentials. 15. One woman accidentally became a successful day trader by consistently placing trades in exactly the wrong direction due to interface confusion. She meant to buy stocks when prices were low and sell when they were high, but constantly clicked the wrong buttons on her trading platform, creating an investment pattern that was exactly opposite of her conscious intentions and conventional wisdom. Her backwards trading strategy accidentally worked perfectly during a volatile market period when traditional approaches failed and contrarian strategies outperformed standard techniques. Her confusion-based trading approach generated $340,000 in profits over 6 months, making her more successful than traders with decades of experience, professional training, and sophisticated analysis tools. She never admitted to other traders that her success came from consistently doing the opposite of what she meant to do, allowing them to believe she was employing some advanced contrarian strategy rather than just being confused by user interface design. 16. A man got rich because he was too proud to admit he didn't understand Bitcoin when his tech-savvy family members explained cryptocurrency concepts. During a family dinner in 2012, his nephew spent an hour explaining blockchain technology, mining, and digital currency investment opportunities. And he nodded along pretending to understand every word while secretly having no idea what anyone was talking about. To maintain his reputation as someone who stayed current with technology trends, he bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin the next day, then avoided all cryptocurrency discussions for 5 years to prevent anyone from discovering his ignorance about his own investment. When Bitcoin exploded in value in 2017, he discovered his pride-based investment was worth $180,000, making his refusal to admit confusion the most profitable financial decision he'd ever made. His fake technological sophistication accidentally outperformed the investment strategies of people who actually understood cryptocurrency markets and made informed decisions based on research and analysis. 17. A woman became a successful landlord by accidentally buying a duplex she thought was a single-family home with unusual layout features. She bid on what the listing described as a house with a large finished basement, not realizing the property description actually detailed a duplex with 2 complete separate living units, including individual entrances, kitchens, and utilities. After moving into the upper unit, she discovered her basement was actually a fully equipped apartment with its own entrance, complete kitchen, and separate address that was already being rented to tenants she didn't know existed. Too embarrassed to admit she'd completely misunderstood what she was buying, she accepted the rental income and learned property management through trial and error. Her accidental rental property generated enough monthly income to purchase 2 additional properties within 3 years, creating a real estate investment empire based entirely on her inability to correctly interpret property listings and her unwillingness to admit she'd made a fundamental mistake about what she was purchasing. 18. One guy accidentally created $1 million invention by trying to fix his broken toaster with duct tape and accidentally improving its performance. His makeshift repair involved wrapping duct tape around damaged heating elements, which created better heat distribution and more even toasting than the original design. But he assumed his modification was just a temporary solution until he could afford a replacement appliance. Friends who visited and used his broken toaster consistently commented on how perfectly it cooked bread, and they started asking him to modify their toasters using the same duct tape technique that had accidentally optimized the heating system. His reputation as someone who could improve toasters with hardware store supplies led to a patent application that kitchen appliance companies licensed for $900,000, turning his emergency repair into intellectual property that revolutionized heating element design and commercial toaster manufacturing. 19. A woman became wealthy by accidentally creating a viral social media account for her cat and stumbling into the pet influencer industry. She meant to create an Instagram account for herself, but got confused during the setup process and accidentally listed her cat as the account owner, creating a profile that presented daily activities from a feline perspective. Too confused about social media settings to fix the mistake, she started posting photos of her routine with captions written as if her sarcastic cat was commenting on human behavior in daily life situations. The cat's account gained 4 million followers who loved the unique perspective of ordinary activities, narrated by a judgmental pet who seemed more intelligent and funny than most human social media personalities. Her accidental pet influencer career earned $600,000 annually from sponsorship deals with cat food companies, pet toy manufacturers, and lifestyle brands who wanted to reach audiences through her cat's surprisingly sophisticated commentary on modern life. 20. One man got rich because he was too cheap and environmentally conscious to throw away expired manufacturer coupons. He collected promotional coupons from newspapers and magazines, but consistently forgot to use them before expiration dates, creating a large collection of supposedly worthless paper discounts. Instead of throwing away expired coupons like most people would, he discovered through trial and error that many retail stores didn't carefully check expiration dates, especially during busy periods when cashiers processed transactions quickly. His systematic approach to using technically invalid discounts turned into a sophisticated operation where he bought products at massive discounts and resold them online at market prices. Before major retailers upgraded their point-of-sale systems to catch expired coupons, his extreme couponing arbitrage business generated $280,000 in profits from deals that existed in the gap between coupon expiration dates and actual retail system enforcement. 21. A woman accidentally became a successful published author by submitting her grocery shopping list to a poetry contest instead of her actual creative writing. She grabbed what she thought was her contest entry from her purse, but accidentally submitted a carefully written list of organic vegetables, artisanal cheeses, and specialty ingredients arranged in a format that resembled experimental poetry. The literary contest judges interpreted her detailed grocery list as brilliant avant-garde commentary on consumer culture, organic food trends, and the poetry of everyday domestic life in modern society. Her grocery list poetry won first place in the experimental literature category and became the foundation for a best-selling book that generated $450,000 in royalties from readers and critics who found profound meaning in her accidentally submitted shopping notes, launching a literary career based on the poetic potential of mundane household planning documents. 22. One investor became wealthy by accidentally buying stock in the right company for completely wrong reasons based on name confusion. He intended to purchase shares in the pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson after reading positive analyst reports, but misremembered the company name and accidentally bought stock in a small firm called Johnston & Associates that operated in the same healthcare sector. 6 months later, Johnston & Associates announced breakthrough research results and was acquired by a major pharmaceutical corporation for 50 times its previous market value, turning his memory error into a $320,000 windfall that outperformed his intended investment. He never admitted to other investors that his sophisticated contrarian strategy of investing in lesser-known companies was actually just the result of poor memory and lucky guessing, allowing his reputation as someone with insider knowledge about undervalued healthcare stocks to grow among people who assumed his success was based on research rather than accidental name confusion. 23. A craft business owner got rich by being too nervous and socially awkward to negotiate prices with suppliers. When buying materials for her small handmade jewelry business, she accepted the first quoted prices without trying to bargain or negotiate better terms, accidentally discovering that many suppliers inflated initial quotes, expecting customers to negotiate lower prices. Her willingness to pay asking prices without complaint made suppliers eager to work with her because she was their easiest and most profitable customer, leading them to offer exclusive deals, bulk discounts, and priority access to new materials to maintain the relationship. Her anti-negotiation approach saved more money through loyalty rewards and exclusive access than aggressive bargaining would have achieved. and her craft business grew into a $700,000 annual operation that succeeded because suppliers preferred working with someone who didn't argue about prices and made their jobs easier by accepting reasonable quotes without lengthy negotiation processes. 24. A delivery driver accidentally created a profitable specialty business by consistently getting lost and turning his navigation mistakes into a unique service offering. He worked for a standard delivery company but had terrible directional skills and frequently delivered packages to wrong addresses, getting lost in interesting neighborhoods and discovering scenic routes that regular GPS systems never suggested. Instead of firing him for his mistakes, customers started specifically requesting his delivery services because his wrong turns often resulted in faster overall delivery times when he accidentally found shortcuts. And his pleasant attitude about being lost made the experience entertaining rather than frustrating. He started his own scenic route delivery service that charged premium prices for drivers who took deliberately indirect paths and provided commentary about interesting neighborhoods, historical landmarks, and local businesses along the way. His navigation incompetence generated $180,000 annually from customers who valued unpredictable service and discovery over efficient, point-to-point transportation. 25. One woman became a successful real estate investor by consistently attending the wrong type of auctions and bidding on items she completely misunderstood. She thought she was attending estate sales where she could bid on antique furniture and household collections, not realizing she was actually at property auctions where people were purchasing entire buildings and land parcels. Her confusion led her to acquire 3 rental properties at prices she considered reasonable for furniture collections, not understanding that she'd bought buildings that came with existing tenants, maintenance responsibilities, and monthly rental income streams. Her accidental real estate empire generated $240,000 annually in rental revenue from properties she'd purchased while trying to furnish her living room with vintage furniture, proving that sometimes the biggest investment mistakes can become the most profitable accidents when misunderstanding leads to acquisition of appreciating assets rather than depreciating household goods. 26. A man got rich because he was too embarrassed about his body image to return clothing that didn't fit properly. He consistently ordered business suits online but made sizing errors that filled his closet with professional attire that was either too large or too small for his actual measurements. Instead of dealing with return processes that required admitting his sizing mistakes, he started selling his fashion errors on eBay as gently worn professional attire from someone who allegedly changed sizes frequently due to fitness routines. His accidental men's fashion resale business attracted customers looking for discounted designer suits, and his consistent inventory of high-quality mistakes grew into a boutique specializing in discounted professional clothing. His sizing incompetence and return anxiety generated $380,000 annually from other professionals who needed business attire and appreciated buying designer suits at reduced prices from someone whose inability to measure himself correctly had become their fashion opportunity. 27. A woman accidentally became a successful event planner by consistently showing up to the wrong parties due to her habit of misreading invitations and misunderstanding social communications. She regularly attended events she wasn't invited to, but her enthusiastic participation and genuine enjoyment made hosts assume she was supposed to be there and was probably someone's guest they'd forgotten about. Her accidental party crashing skills impressed wealthy hosts who appreciated her energy, social confidence, and ability to make any gathering more fun through her authentic enthusiasm for celebration. They started hiring her to bring the same spontaneous energy to their own planned events, not realizing that her party skills came from years of practice at fitting into social situations where she technically didn't belong. Her confusion-based networking approach built a client base that paid her $150,000 annually to attend parties professionally and create the same atmosphere of genuine fun that had made her successful as an accidental, uninvited guest. 28. One entrepreneur became wealthy by accidentally buying a food truck instead of the regular work truck he needed for his landscaping business. He purchased what he thought was a cargo truck with storage space for lawn equipment, not carefully reading the listing that described a fully equipped mobile kitchen with commercial cooking equipment, food prep areas, and health department permits. Instead of admitting his purchasing mistake or trying to return the mobile restaurant, he started selling sandwiches and drinks during lunch breaks between landscaping jobs discovering that food service generated significantly more revenue per hour than lawn maintenance. His accidental entry into the food truck industry became more profitable than his original landscaping business, and he sold his mobile food operation 3 years later for $420,000 to restaurant entrepreneurs who wanted to expand into street food without building a kitchen from scratch. 29. A man got rich by being too lazy and disorganized to cancel subscription services he'd signed up for during free trial periods. He consistently forgot to cancel automatic renewals for various online services, assuming the small monthly charges weren't significant enough to worry about in his overall budget. One of his many forgotten subscriptions was actually an investment advisory service that automatically purchased dividend-paying stocks with his monthly fee, creating a diversified portfolio that grew steadily while he remained completely unaware of his accidental investment program. 5 years later, while reviewing his credit card statements, he discovered his laziness-based investment portfolio was worth $280,000 and had outperformed actively managed funds, proving that his inability to manage subscriptions had accidentally created a more successful investment strategy than the approaches used by people who spent significant time researching stocks and timing market entries. 30. One woman accidentally created a successful consulting business by consistently giving business advice she believed was obviously terrible and hoping people would realize better alternatives. When friends asked her opinions about business decisions, she deliberately gave suggestions she thought were wrong, using reverse psychology to help them recognize superior strategies through contrast with her intentionally bad recommendations. Her terrible advice actually worked perfectly for their specific situations, creating a reputation as someone with unconventional wisdom who understood business dynamics that conventional approaches missed. Her backwards consulting method generated $200,000 annually from clients who paid premium rates for advice that contradicted standard business school teachings but produced better results than traditional strategies, making her more successful by being wrong on purpose than most consultants were by trying to be conventionally correct. 31. A property investor became wealthy by accidentally buying real estate in the wrong state due to geographic confusion and poor attention to listing details. He intended to purchase rental property in Ohio where he lived and understood local market conditions, but misread location information and bought a similar property in Oregon, not realizing his cross-country mistake until he tried to visit his investment for a personal inspection. Oregon's property market experienced dramatic value increases over the next 2 years, while Ohio's real estate remained relatively flat. And his geographic error turned into a $340,000 profit when he sold his accidental West Coast investment to technology workers who couldn't afford properties closer to their jobs. His mistake-based investment strategy accidentally achieved geographic diversification that professional real estate advisors recommend, but most individual investors never implement successfully. 32. A woman got rich because she was too polite and conflict avoidant to reject sales pitches from persistent telemarketers. When investment advisors called offering various financial opportunities, she agreed to small investments because she didn't want to hurt their feelings or engage in confrontational conversations about why she wasn't interested in their offerings. Her politeness-based investment approach accidentally created a diversified portfolio across multiple growing sectors, including technology, healthcare, renewable energy, and emerging markets that she never would have researched or selected through traditional investment planning. Her inability to say no to sales calls generated $190,000 in returns over 3 years, proving that random diversification through telephone solicitation could outperform sophisticated portfolio management strategies employed by people who spent considerable time analyzing market trends and making calculated investment decisions. 33. One man accidentally became a successful furniture designer by consistently assembling mass-produced furniture incorrectly and creating unique pieces through construction mistakes. His inability to follow IKEA assembly instructions resulted in chairs, tables, and storage units that looked completely different from the intended designs but were structurally sound and visually interesting in ways the original manufacturers never intended. Friends who visited his apartment admired his custom modifications and offered to purchase similar pieces, not realizing they were paying for construction errors rather than intentional design improvements. His accidental furniture customization business generated $280,000 annually from customers who paid premium prices for what they assumed were sophisticated design variations, but were actually just the predictable results of his inability to interpret assembly diagrams and follow sequential construction steps correctly. 34. A woman became wealthy by accidentally creating a community-supported agriculture business while trying to cancel her own organic vegetable subscription service. She called customer service to discontinue her monthly deliveries because she was receiving more produce than she could consume. But poor phone connection quality made the representative think she wanted to organize group deliveries for multiple customers in her neighborhood. Instead of correcting the misunderstanding, she started coordinating bulk organic food deliveries for neighbors who were interested in sharing costs and variety, accidentally becoming a local food distribution coordinator who managed purchasing and logistics for busy families who wanted organic produce but didn't have time to manage individual subscriptions. Her mistake-based food service business generated $150,000 annually in coordination and management fees from customers who appreciated having someone else handle the complexity of group buying and distribution scheduling. 35. One businessman got rich by being chronically late to meetings and accidentally turning poor time management into a psychological advantage. His consistent tardiness meant he often arrived after initial negotiations, and small talk were complete, making his entrance appear to be a calculated power play rather than the result of his inability to accurately estimate travel time and meeting preparation requirements. Clients and business partners interpreted his lateness as confidence and success indicators, assuming that someone who could afford to keep others waiting must be in high demand and have significant leverage in business relationships. His accidental negotiation strategy generated $320,000 in additional contract value over 2 years because people offered him better terms to secure his participation, making his time management problems more financially profitable than punctuality would have been in similar business situations. 36. A woman accidentally became a successful artist by trying to return flood-damaged paintings to a discount store and discovering that water damage could be marketed as artistic technique. The paintings in her apartment were damaged when a pipe burst, creating abstract water stain effects that she thought looked terrible and completely ruined the inexpensive artwork she'd purchased for basic wall decoration. The store refused to accept returns on water-damaged merchandise, so she decided to sell them at a garage sale as distressed artwork, just to recover some of her financial loss. Customers loved the water damage aesthetic and commissioned her to create similar pieces using controlled water application techniques, not realizing they were paying for accidental effects rather than intentional artistic processes. Her flood-inspired art technique became a signature style that generated $240,000 annually from collectors who assumed water staining was a sophisticated artistic choice rather than the result of plumbing failure and subsequent damage control efforts. 37. One homeowner became wealthy by accidentally creating viral video content while documenting property damage for insurance claim purposes. When his neighbor's tree fell on his car during a storm, he recorded himself examining each new dent and scratch he discovered, providing increasingly dramatic commentary about the extent of damage as his frustration and dismay grew throughout the inspection process. His genuine emotional reaction to discovering progressive levels of automotive destruction became an accidental comedy masterpiece that gained 15 million views from people who found his authentic dismay more entertaining than professional comedy content. The insurance company featured his unintentionally hilarious video in their advertising campaign about comprehensive coverage, paying him $180,000 for content he'd created while genuinely documenting his own misfortune and never intending to entertain anyone other than insurance adjusters who needed visual evidence of storm damage. 38. A restaurant owner got rich by consistently ordering wrong ingredients and turning supply chain mistakes into menu innovations that customers loved. Her poor communication skills with food suppliers led to regular deliveries of ingredients she hadn't requested, creating constant inventory challenges that forced her to develop new recipes around whatever items arrived at her restaurant. Customers began specifically visiting her establishment because they enjoyed the unpredictable seasonal surprise menu that changed based on whatever supply mistakes had occurred that week, not realizing they were paying premium prices for dishes created from ordering errors rather than planned seasonal variety programs. Her accidental farm-to-table concept restaurant generated $400,000 annually from diners who thought her constantly changing menu represented sophisticated culinary creativity and local sourcing philosophy, rather than the results of her inability to communicate effectively with food distributors and suppliers. 39. One landlord accidentally became successful by marketing his basement apartment as a luxury underground living space, instead of admitting it was just a regular basement that he'd converted for rental income. His creative property descriptions attracted tenants who were excited about unique housing opportunities and assumed that underground living represented an exclusive lifestyle choice rather than a standard basement conversion. His ability to make subterranean living sound appealing and exclusive allowed him to charge premium rent prices for below-ground housing that most landlords would struggle to market effectively. His accidental luxury basement marketing approach generated enough rental income to purchase additional properties, creating a real estate investment portfolio based on his talent for making basement living sound like an upscale housing choice rather than a compromise motivated by affordability and space limitations. 40. A woman became wealthy by accidentally creating a premium cleaning service while trying to avoid social interactions with her overly talkative neighbor. She started cleaning other people's houses during times when her neighbor was most likely to want lengthy conversations, using professional cleaning as a legitimate excuse to be away from home and unavailable for unwanted social interactions. Her thorough cleaning approach, motivated by the desire to stay away from home as long as possible, impressed clients who had never experienced such detailed attention to household maintenance tasks. Word spread about her exceptionally thorough cleaning style, and she found herself booked solid with clients who paid premium rates for cleaning services that were actually powered by her neighbor avoidance strategy rather than professional training or particular passion for housework. Her social anxiety management technique generated $160,000 annually in cleaning service revenue from customers who received exceptional service, motivated by her need to avoid awkward conversations with neighbors who had too much free time. 41. One restaurant owner got rich by being too stubborn to admit his original restaurant concept was failing and accidentally discovering that constant change could be a successful business strategy. Instead of closing his unsuccessful themed restaurant, he kept experimenting with different concepts, menu styles, and service approaches in the same location, changing everything from decor to cuisine type every few months when previous approaches didn't generate expected customer traffic. His stubbornness-based restaurant became known for evolutionary cuisine that transformed regularly, attracting food bloggers, adventurous diners, and social media influencers who enjoyed never knowing what type of experience they would have from one visit to the next. His refusal to accept failure and constant willingness to completely change direction generated $350,000 annually from customers who paid premium prices for unpredictable dining experiences that were actually just the result of his inability to admit when business strategies weren't working as originally planned. 42. A woman accidentally became a successful life coach by consistently giving personal advice that was completely wrong for her own life but perfect for other people's different situations and personality types. Her tendency to suggest solutions that wouldn't work for her specific circumstances accidentally created a client base of people with opposite problems, different personality traits, and alternative life situations who needed exactly the guidance she thought was obviously inappropriate for her own decision-making processes. Her backwards wisdom approach generated $180,000 annually from coaching clients who succeeded by following advice she genuinely believed was terrible for her own life, proving that sometimes the best guidance comes from people who understand what doesn't work for them and can therefore identify what might work for people with different strengths, weaknesses, and life circumstances. 43. One man became wealthy by accidentally creating a profitable antique sourcing business while trying to declutter his house and get rid of items he considered worthless junk. He started selling miscellaneous items from his cluttered garage and storage areas to create more living space, not realizing he was accidentally curating valuable vintage collections that previous owners had stored and forgotten in his house when he purchased the property years earlier. His junk removal operation became an antique dealing business when collectors started contacting him about specific items they'd seen in his online listings, offering significant amounts for pieces he'd originally planned to throw away or donate to charity. His accidental vintage merchandise business generated $290,000 annually from items he'd inherited, with property purchases, and had spent years considering obstacles to home organization, rather than recognizing them as potentially valuable collectibles that deserved research and proper marketing. 44. A woman got rich by being too indecisive to choose between investment options and accidentally creating perfect portfolio diversification through her inability to make financial decisions. When her financial advisor presented 3 different investment strategies with different risk levels and expected returns, she couldn't decide which approach was best for her goals and asked him to divide her investment money equally among all the presented options. Her indecision-based investment approach accidentally created a perfectly balanced portfolio that performed better than focused strategies during market volatility periods when single-approach investments experienced significant losses. Her paralysis analysis accidentally became more profitable than decisive action, generating $220,000 in returns over 4 years, and proving that sometimes the inability to choose between good options can be more successful than confidently selecting one approach and missing the benefits available through diversification across multiple investment philosophies. 45. And finally, there's one man who became a millionaire by accidentally starting a business while trying to procrastinate on completing his annual tax preparation responsibilities. He spent weeks avoiding his tax paperwork by organizing and digitizing thousands of old family photos, creating detailed digital albums, backup systems, and preservation protocols as an elaborate way to avoid thinking about tax deadlines and financial record organization. When friends and family members saw his photo organization skills and digital preservation systems, they hired him to digitize and organize their own family photo collections, not realizing they were paying for services he developed while avoiding his own administrative responsibilities. His tax procrastination project became a professional photo preservation and family history documentation service that generated $180,000 annually from people who needed someone to organize decades of family memories, while he continued successfully avoiding his own paperwork through the productive distraction of handling other people's organizational challenges. Here's the truth about accidental wealth. Sometimes the best financial strategy is having no strategy at all. These people turned mistakes into fortunes by being too stubborn, embarrassed, or confused to quit when normal people would give up. Want to accidentally become wealthy? Stop trying so hard to be smart with money and start being consistently profitably wrong instead. Subscribe if you want more ways that being wrong can be more profitable than being right.